English teachers पढ़ाए तो simple लगे everything. Leaderboards and quizzes से
Amazing.
learning हो जाए happening. समझ आएगा तो मजा आएगा.
Vedantu. Learn live online. To attend a free live class, download the app now.
Hello my dear students, this is Sundar Rabindranathan here. Hope all you guys are having an amazing start to this new year. Right? Okay, welcome to this session which is more of a Know Your Dates series continuation. And today we will be starting with a new chapter, a very interesting chapter, which is the making of a global world. So here, there are a lot of things that we can discuss, and you will also understand the overall global context to this particular chapter, this topic. Okay, let me start with this. What is globalization? Because this chapter has a lot to do with that. Both are related and almost the same. So what is globalization? And in India, full-fledged globalization happened in the form of economic liberalization. In 1990s, okay, just to give you a context, I think it was Dr. Manmohan Singh who was there as the Prime Minister at that point in time. He opened up the entire channels for industrialization in the form of economic liberalization. Alright, so before that, if you watch 1980s and all, you would not find international banks in India. You will not find international shops in India. You will not find international factories, set up in India. Okay, except for the British ones, of course, because we were colonized. See, now if you look at it, you find so many, everywhere there is a mix of international and national organizations, right? It could be factories, it could be shops, a small shop, malls that have come in, supermarkets, wherever it is. The entire world is globalized now. So, what does that mean? That means transactions happening across the globe to and fro. For what? Okay, so the making of the global world is all about only three things. Alright, how transactions happened across the world, from India to India, right, across the world, also similarly for three things. The first one is naturally goods. We started transacting goods, right? You call it as export and import, right? Goods. Second, goods that involve both living and non-living stuff. Even if you are exporting live cattle to some other place, it's still goods. You getting it? Second is labor. There are countries which do not have enough population at all, so people are migrating from one place to another, okay, hoping for a better livelihood as well, because they find scope there, scope living there. They have got money, they have got the natural resources, they do not have enough people living there, so people move from here to there, right? How how much of immigration happens to and fro now? How many people move from India to US, India to Canada? Canada is a sparsely populated country, right? So that is the second part. The second part is labor. Though you find the word labor a little kind of colloquial, still labor means everything. Even a software engineer is still kind of a labor who move from one place to another, because labor means for work. Okay, you need to look at it from a verb perspective. What is the third thing? Third thing is money. Right? So the global world, a lot of monetary transaction happen. People invest from one place to another. So many startups who get money, alright, are from international customers, right? Is it not? So these are three major reasons why transaction across the globe happens. People come to India, go from India, alright, all these things happen for three things. Again I repeat, goods, labor and capital or investments, money, in other words. You getting it? So now, say if let me give you another example. As a result of it, as a result of this kind of transaction being allowed across the globe, what has happened? Lot of advantages happened, lot of disadvantages are there as well. If I ask you what are the advantages? Number one, see for example, in India, what is India known for? India is known for the textiles, right? India is known for certain natural resources which are available only in India. So, these things for people across who are not there, who are in some other continents, alright, or some other countries, for them to get these goods, it's going to be very, very costly, correct? So, but when the same goods are imported from India to there, they get at a much, much cheaper price. How many of us before 15-20 years we were getting goods like watches and all for so high prices, but the same ones now, today if you look at it, they are available for so cheap, unbelievably cheap, watches, toys, whatnot. Say for example the Chinese market. When they come, they almost conquered in the entire India market, is it not? We started using products of the Chinese like crazy. What facilitated this? Globalization facilitated this, my dear students. So this chapter is going to be all about where it all started, right? And what are the different routes that it took. When I say route, globalization has its own impacts, right? What were the different levels and kinds of impact that we had, and what are the countries, namely were there any specific transaction which needs to be noted with timelines? I'm going to speak to you. I hope you have a very clear picture now, and you also understand how amazing and interesting this chapter is going to be. I'll try and divide this chapter into a few parts. Most probably it should be around 3 parts if I'm not wrong. Okay, so this is part 1. Are you guys ready? Shall we move on to, I think I've set the context and you guys are all geared up, right? Let us move on to the session. So what are we going to deal with? Number 1, the pre-modern world. When it all started, how was it? And how it all started. This is 1. Number 2 is Silk routes. Alright, how they linked the entire world. Remember in the print culture and all, we were speaking about certain routes which facilitated the print technology to move from one place to another. We'll speak about them. There are multiple silk routes that were there. Asia is known for silk, all of you know that. 3, food travels. Alright, so goods related to food and beverages, how they traveled, the movement of them across the globe is something that we see as the 3rd topic. 4th, conquest, diseases and trade. See, as a result of globalization, people naturally tend to get greedy. They find that resources are available and I am allowed to go there and transact. I want to colonize them. I want to conquer that place so that I have a better hold. Instead of going there and asking them, alright, can you take my goods? I will conquer them and it's my grip from then on. So conquest, disease and trade. So when this kind of transaction happen, I was just speaking about live cattle being moved across. What if there are diseases? The cattle were infected and if you move them across, the same infection is going to go there. How many diseases we brought from Africa to India like that? Is it not? Ebola virus, so many viruses, right? Okay, now 5th one, 19th century. See, 19th century, especially 1869, I will speak about it when that topic comes. There are several very important things, transactions that happen which you need to make a note of. Okay. 6, overall, the entire world economy takes shape. Okay. How the currency form started. Initially it was like seashells, right? And how it all started and how it took a proper shape after that, that we will be seeing as the 6th part. The 7th is, in this entire globalization for the last 3-4 centuries, what is the role of technology here? A little of it we have already seen. Remember steam engine? Similar to that. What is the role of technology? What all it did? We will deal with that as well. And 8th, the last one is colonialism. What happened? Okay, when people conquered, because as I just said, the moment they felt greedy, they started conquering, and as a result of that, Always it is the middle and the lower class which gets affected. What kind of effect it had on them, we will see. Overall put together, you will find that this would form the first part of the session. Right, guys? So shall we start with the pre-modern world? Okay? So the pre-modern world. So let us start. So globalization, as I said, it is, the term is being used for almost the last 50 years or so. Okay? So now, right, even in the ancient history, if you look at, if you read the scriptures, the books that were available, there were people called travelers who went from one geography to another for trade. Okay? So they are there. You will find that people like travelers, traders, priests, pilgrims, they had their own objectives and they traveled to other parts of the world for their objectives to spread. Say for example, priests or pilgrims, they wanted to spread their religion. They moved across. Traders, they wanted to spread their business. They moved across. So everyone had very, very specific objectives in mind with which they started moving. And they also wanted to learn. China is known for pottery. Our guys went there, learned pottery, come here and they spread it across here. Is it not? So that is knowledge part. So people do all these transactions also happen for learning, knowledge part. So knowledge, opportunity and spiritual fulfillment, I think I already spoke about it. To spread the religion, okay, to spread their knowledge of spirituality, etc. Done? Third, I think I already spoke about this. People, when they moved from one place to another, they carried their goods, they carried their money, sometimes their skills, ideas, right? And even germs and diseases, right? There is one disease which we will be speaking about. It almost killed 90% of the African cattle. And it came from Britain, Asia. That is British conquered Asia. Right? It's called rinderpest. I'll speak about it once we move on. So now let us see. Say for example, even from 3000 BCE, there was trade existing. You will find that even in the 10th century BC, there are our scriptures, the stone carvings which have pictures of ships. Okay, you would see that in your books as well. Pictures of ships denoting that there was trade happening across even during that time. Right? Now, in 13th century, this is becoming an unmistakable link. So now if you look at it, earlier we had the scouries, they call it as, which are the seashells, which were used as a form of currency at that point in time. Okay, and they were from Maldives and they started moving, the entire concept started moving to China and West Asia. Right? Okay. Silk routes. Okay, the moment I say Silk Route, whom do you remember? Having completed the print culture chapter, I hope all of you remember Marco Polo, right? Who started moving the print technology from China to, from Asia to Italy, correct? Right. Now, let's speak about the Silk routes. Silk routes were existing even before the Christian era, okay? And they were there till 15th century. It is there even now, but it is, since the entire trade and transport is opened up, there is no concept of a Silk route now. Okay, so now if you look at it based on this, I was just speaking about this exactly. It is mentioned here: Chinese pottery, textile, spices. They are from South East Asia as well as India. India is known for textiles and spices. We started transporting them to all other countries. Okay, similarly, religions, Christianity, Islam as well as Buddhism started moving to other countries as well. Right, guys? So it is not just for trade that the Silk routes were used or exploited. Okay, now food travels naturally, right? You will find food grains, vegetables, fruits, they start moving from one country to another, geographically one location to another. See, there were people who were thriving only on, especially in Europe and all, the poor peasants, they were thriving, they didn't have enough livelihood, enough money to manage their livelihood. They started depending on spaghetti, potatoes and stuff. Okay, So 5th century, Arab traders, remember 5th century. See guys, the dates are important because that is the crux of this particular series of sessions, right? 5th century, Arabs even moved pasta as well as Sicily in Italy. Okay, they moved it to their places. Now, apart from that, food like potatoes, soya, groundnuts and stuff, okay, and these were totally new. They were totally new, but this started spreading across, okay, after 5th century. I hope you are clear. So 5th century, please remember two things. One is the Arabs took the pasta in Italy as well as the Sicily, as well as when it comes to stuff like the groundnuts or the potatoes, tomatoes, okay, and essential stuff like chilies, etc. They were not known until the 5th century, but all other countries started knowing them because of the to and fro transportation of these goods. Okay, right guys. Now food, certain food that we have, all right, are Indo-American. In other words, many food that we have are Indo-American. Noodles of course noodles is from the Asian part. You will find that I was telling you, right, in Europe, especially Ireland, peasants were depending on potatoes, and suddenly what happened was the potato crops failed, and many thousands of peasants started dying as a result of that, because they did not have money to buy food, and the potatoes underground which they used to use for their livelihood, for eating, that was also not available. Okay, now conquest, disease and trade. 16th century, you find that the pre-modern world, which was very limited to the specific colonies and countries alone, it started suddenly shrinking, because the moment the other countries started identifying routes to travel to these countries, the entire pre-modern world shrank. Okay, excellent. And most of these routes were by sea, remember this. Then America, okay, which had vast lands, excellent crops, minerals, etc., they started spreading their trades as well as livelihood. Okay, and similarly, this again happened in the 16th century, mid of 16th century, right? Portuguese and Spanish conquest, they conquered America, all right. Portuguese as well as the Spanish conquest of America, it spread chicken pox. Diseases also started spreading. Then in the 17th century, you find that El Dorado, right? The fabled city of gold. Hunts were on. It's kind of a treasure hunt were on, especially in the 17th century, in search of this treasure. Okay, so you guys need to remember what all happened now and what all things, people started moving in. So number one, both Asia and Africa, trade started expanding because people started identifying routes via sea. Number two is America had abundant crops, vast land, they started spreading, right? And it is not just, they were also conquered. The Spanish as well as the Portuguese conquest, right, of America, it also led to a bit of globalization, but it also spread a disease, smallpox. Then you should also remember 17th century, the hunt for gold. All right, sometimes it appears fictitious, kind of El Dorado, this fabled city of gold, but people were there on for that treasure hunt. Clear, guys? Okay, 18th century, China and India were the world's richest countries. 18th century. Okay, India is known to be the land of the richest resources, including gold. Okay, and yeah, we all know what happened after that. Once in kind of the East India Company, once they came in, what all happened? Colonization happened, and you find that every resource was really ransacked from us. Yeah? Okay. So now in the 19th century, what happened? In 19th century, you find that Europe, lot of poor people were there, and diseases were there. Okay, lot of people moved from Europe, okay, and to different parts of the world, especially America, and a few in Africa. Okay, now a little more about 19th century, 1815 to 1914, till the World War I. Right, guys, so there are three very important things. One is trade, cloth, and wheat. Okay, this is the first type of movement. Second is labor. Third is money. I think this is how we started with. These are the three flows that we will be dealing with respect to 19th century. So the world economy takes shape here. So mid of 18th century, Britain started expanding very rapidly. You all know, how Britain was the, the king of industrialization. Is it not? And we all know even the steam engine, how well it was used there. People started having more money, okay, and they were also, able to take goods from other countries. The food imports really started improving in Britain. Then in the world, across the world, you will find that Europe, Russia, America, and Australia, lands were completely prepared, cleared, okay, and food production, okay, was facilitated to meet the British demand. Okay, right, guys. So this entire slide speaks about how vastly Britain started improving in the mid 18th century. Okay, this is something which we should note, and we all know that, and that's majorly because of India. Then after that, late 18th century, you find that population started increasing, because of which demand for the food started becoming more and more demand. Food grains, pulses, whatnot. Okay, and towns and cities started expanding because they were able to cope up with the demand. And government started putting in a lot of restriction, which was called as for the import of corn, in the form of corn laws for corn, okay, importing corn. And but this led to a lot of chaos, and there were movements opposing that, and then the corn laws were scrapped. Okay, British agriculture was unable to compete with the imports. Okay, Britain was not known for agriculture, we all know that, and they were not able to cope up with the incoming goods, and that's happening in India now. All of you know that we are not able to really cope up with so much of supplies that are coming across the world into India. Would you agree with me? We have been trying to stop goods coming into China, coming into India from China, across the globe. But are we able to succeed in that? It's a tough thing. My dear students, tell me this. As a result of this globalization, if you ask me what is the biggest disadvantage, of course everything became cheap, etc. What is the biggest disadvantage? Can you figure out? The biggest disadvantage is growth and welfare of people, the business, the traders in India. Because something which we can produce for 10 rupees is produced by some other country for 2 rupees. They cannot do that. And as a result of it, you will find that all these small traders, now Amazon has come in, all of you know, right? As a result of which, why are people protesting? Because since using technology, they were able to procure everything in bulk, right? And they were able to give it at that price, which our small traders cannot. This is the reason they don't agree. All right, they always protest against all these e-commerce sites. I hope you're getting it. So Europe, there were diseases were there, people were poor, they didn't have money, everything was chaotic. Almost 50 million people fled to America and Australia. So you will find that throughout the world, almost 150 million people, all right, they moved from their own homes, moved across continents, okay, and they were hoping for a better livelihood. 150 million. At that point in time, it was a big number, my dear students. In 1890, a global agricultural economy taken shape. Number one, you will find that labor movement patterns, laws came in, okay, and capital flows were a lot structured. This is how money should come in, this is how it should be used, this is what is called profit, this is how it is called return on investment. Everything was very, very structured, and the use of technology was also, much, much better. Okay, but they had very, very strong laws to prevent nature from being destroyed at that point, and this is something you should note. So by 1890, you will find that the agricultural economy had taken a much, much better shape. Okay, right. So what happened in India? India was colonized at that point in time, so we couldn't do much. You will find that Punjab and southern parts of India were totally they were relying on agriculture, right? And as you know, cotton was the biggest strength India had. We produced huge amounts of cotton. We were, mostly it was in the form of coarse cotton, right? And in 1820 to 1914, which we are discussing now, right? The entire world trade started moving in, and our people were also, they started transacting across countries. And you will find that the world trade really moved up almost to 40 times. People started boosting it, the world trade started getting boosted for up to 40x. So if at all, there is not much to speak about India. The only thing is it was relying on agriculture. Cotton was produced, that was the notable thing, and that was also used for exports initially, but only coarse cotton. Finished cotton were always taken care of by, remember Manchester? That's, they were the ones who took care of the finished product. Okay, now the role of technology. How did technology really help? Obviously, steam engine has a lot of things. Railways, steamships, telegraph for communication, everything gave a big boost and transformed this 19th century world. Okay? Okay, now till 1817s, animals. This is something we should note, 1870. I hope all of you are taking note whenever I mention it, the year, right? 1870, animals were sent live from one place to another, and there they are slaughtered, butchered, and used for meat. But when they were transported, many animals will fall sick, they occupy a lot of space in the ships, etc. So, and many of them died on the way. So, lot of issues, because they did not have a technology to transport meat. But once refrigerated ships came into picture, you find that they started transporting meat. Okay? So, new technology, refrigerator ships. Okay, this ended the problem of transportation of meat. Okay? Now, people who are depending only on potato, remember the peasants of Europe? Only on potato, meat was also added, because the moment we were able to transport meat from one place to another, the cost of meat came down drastically, and peasants were able to afford that. The poor people in Europe were able to afford. So along with the potatoes that they were speaking about, they were also able to take meat as well. Right. So how colonialism affected? Okay. Obviously, if you find that at that point in time, countries were so greedy, because the concept of war was a structured one that time. Today, before one war, we think 10,000 times. And there are countries which will try and stop the war from happening between some other countries, because every country is interlinked because of trade. Why are we worried when Iran has a problem? We are worried because we have very strong trade relationship for fuel. Correct? Oil specifically. That is the reason. So we also want to stop the war. Similarly, colonialism, you will find that when a colonization took place, what exactly happened? Number one, the positive side of it, one country invading another, conquering the country, it spreads its industrial roots into other countries as well, wherever it spreads. So the good part is, when another country invades and takes over you, they give their technology also to you. We got railways as a result of that, correct? It's like that. Expansion in trade and increase in prosperity, obviously. countries become richer, more things, more new things come to all countries which are getting colonized. But that's not, the advantage is not as big as the disadvantage, is it not? Now, what is the negative side of it? You will find that people lose their livelihood and freedom. What more you want? There is no, you can't compensate that with anything at all. So your freedom is gone, and you will find that it is their laws which will dictate your trade. Even if you are too good in production, it is the country which colonized you whose laws will dictate your trade. Okay, so that is the problem of colonialism. Okay, right, guys? So in 1885, all major countries, okay, they started eyeing Africa because Africa had big land, and amazing natural resources, the forests, etc. So all the top powers met in Berlin and said they wanted to decide on which part of Africa they will take. Remember, it is some other country and that they are discussing about, and they are thinking about how to divide the country between them. Right? Britain and France, they added a lot of African additions to their borders. Belgium and Germany also became colonial powers. And US also started getting into this. In late 1890s, it started colonizing Spain. 1890s, US colonized Spain. Remember that as well. Right, guys? Alright, so with this, part 1 of Know Your Dates, the making of the global world, is over. Right, guys? So I hope you enjoyed it. So I want you to go do a complete recap of what happened now. I think I've set the context, helped you understand, how it all started, what is the importance of globalization, all right, and where do we stand as a result of the globalization that happened earlier. Right, guys? Hope you liked the video, and hit the like button and ensure you subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. Right, guys? Enable the bell icon so that you are notified of the updates. Thank you so much for watching, my dear students. It is me, Sundar Rabindranathan, signing off until I meet you in the next video. Bye-bye.